Have you ever heard this? Well, he'd make a good Christian. I don't know what in the world that means. I really don't. God doesn't save people that make good Christians. He saves dirty, rotten sinners, and with the power of His Spirit, empowers them to do what they could never have been in their own strength. Nobody make a good Christian, but God saves rotten people. He saves sinners. And so keep that in mind when you share the gospel. So here is Nicodemus, and we begin our text this evening. And I want to share with you some things that will help you to understand. Perhaps if you're talking to somebody, it seems like they're receptive, but it seems like maybe you're not getting anywhere. Look what Jesus said to Nicodemus. Verse 9, Nicodemus said, "How can these things be?" And Jesus answered and said unto him, and here's a good question, "Art thou master of Israel, and knowest not these things?" Now Jesus isn't being mean to Nicodemus, but he's making a point that Nicodemus needs to get, and that's the point of this. Nicodemus, where's heaven and how do you get there? Nicodemus, where's heaven and how do you get there? Could you draw me a map, if you will? Brother Will Rice, a friend of mine, often says, he says, you don't know where heaven is, and you sure don't know how to get there. And that's true, isn't it? Where's heaven? It's probably not down, so it's in a real physical. You don't know where it is, do you? If you don't know where it is, how in the world are you going to get there? Your spaceship will probably run out of food before you could travel far enough. And I'm being facetious again, but friend, understand what I'm saying tonight. Nicodemus needed to know that all the things he knew meant nothing. All the things he knew meant nothing. And friend, get past the everything people know. I always take a little bit of time when I first begin to share the gospel to let people share their religious experiences. Just about any time somebody finds out I'm a preacher, they start off trying to let me know that they're good religious people. That's a fact. They really do. Here's your preacher. I'll be somewhere and I'll be working with somebody or doing business with someone, and I'll be wearing jeans and all greasy like I normally am when I'm wearing jeans. And I'll say to somebody, or I'll be buying something or working on something and talking to someone and just having a conversation with them. They'll say, "So what do you do?" I'll tell them, "Well, I'm a pastor. I preach. I'm a preacher." And, "Oh, that's really good." And then they start telling me about how they're either related to somebody who's religious, or they grew up religious, or even though they've been a dismal failure in their family, etc., they really have got a good heart. And they begin to relate to me how good they are and what a great job they've done raising their children or whatever else. And, this charity event that they take place in, I do the toy run with my motorcycle once a year, something good that they do to convince me that they're just as religious or just as good as I am. And I always let them tell me the thing. And I always say, well, that's really good. That's really nice. And Jesus sort of did that. But then after he got done, he said to Nicodemus, he said, "Are you a master in Israel and you don't know how to get to heaven?" And friend, don't be arrogant, don't be unkind, don't be cruel to people. But go ahead and ask him a question. So how do you get to heaven? Because the point is that Nicodemus didn't know. And here Jesus is sharing with him profound truth that a child could understand. And it went right over Nicodemus' head. He said, "How can these things be?" Do you understand what Jesus was explaining to Nicodemus when he said, you can't see the wind and you can't see the Spirit, but everybody's got to be born spiritually. You're born physically, but you're not born spiritually. I understand it. And I think that anyone's thinking, and it just right over the top of Nicodemus' head. Why do you think that is?
Natural man doesn't understand the things
That's a good reason. A natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for their foolishness in him. Neither can he know them, because they're spiritually discerned. I suppose said spiritually concerned. 1 Corinthians chapter 2.
It's too logical.
Okay? What'd you say?
It was too logical.
It's too logical. Tell me what you mean by that. I think that's what I'm looking for, but I'm not
Well,
sure.
he's thinking in concept of a human concept of what we can see, feel, think, what we know.
You know
He's
what?
just not an algebra man.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we have to present the gospel in a different way to Nicodemus. I think Jesus knew how to present the gospel, though. Tony?
I don't know if it's the answer you're looking for, but I think that a lot of times the gospel's so simple that people want to overcomplicate and think that there's some sort of superior intelligence that, they have to be super smart to get the secret truth or something like that. And it's just very simple, and people have a hard time.
That's textbook, isn't it? The gospel's simple. And Nicodemus was complicated. And he wanted a gospel that was Pharisaical. He wanted something that would fit right into the laws and give him some more. He wanted to be able to go back to the synagogue or to the temple and to the Pharisees and the religious rulers and be able to say, guys, new rules. Here we go. I found out something and look at the tricks I can do. And Jesus said, you master in Israel and you don't know how to get to heaven. And I think Nicodemus stopped for a second and thought very clearly, you know what? Sometimes I wonder how some religious leaders, sometimes I'm angry at false religion. I wonder how in the world could that person teach those people that, and he knows it's lies. He's got to know. He's got to know it's lies. And then I sometimes think, well, he doesn't know anybody does know. And he's just teaching what he's been taught, and he knows hasn't worked for him, but he probably thinks the problem's just him. And so he's just passing on and relaying this religion. And that's old Nicodemus. He's religious and he's a good fellow, a good man. And he just can't get past this knowledge that he has. And Christian, I'll tell you something. It's really hard to teach me when I think I know something. And it's really hard to share the gospel with a person that thinks he's saved. And Nicodemus came to Jesus knowing that Jesus knew God, knew how to get to heaven and all that. But Nicodemus didn't really think he was lost. And so he didn't understand. So Jesus went on to expound. He said this. He said, truly, truly, or verily, verily, I say unto thee. He said, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. Okay, who is we?
The prophets and Jesus.
Jesus and who would have been with Jesus speaking that he didn't know? Who?
The disciples.
Yeah, probably John the Baptist, the disciples of John the Baptist, believers in Jesus. He's specifically speaking of himself. And he said, I'm telling you about things I know. Who else would be included in the group, though, that Jesus is talking to right now? Who else is there? Go ahead, you know the answer. I'm not tricking you. Who else is there?
Judas.
No, Judas wasn't. Good answer. Sydney was nobody, wasn't it? Nobody else was there. It was Jesus and Nicodemus. The scripture doesn't say anyone else was there. John might have been there, though, because he did give the account, didn't he? Told how Nicodemus came to Jesus by night. And so it'd probably be a pretty good assumption that John was either there or very close by. He certainly was intimate with this story. And Jesus would have said, and probably you would have had John there, but probably it would have been Jesus, maybe John, and probably Nicodemus. And I think the group Jesus was talking about, he said, we speak that we do know. He's speaking to the person that he's talking to, and he's talking to Nicodemus. What did Nicodemus come to Jesus and talk about? What was the first statement Nicodemus made? We know that you're our teacher, come from God, because
Nobody can do the things that you do.
nobody can do what you do except God. Only God can do what you do.
Mhm.
And Nicodemus knows that that's the hard fact of the case. You can't deny the miracles of Christ. When Nicodemus was sent in the account with the other religious rulers and the Pharisees to take Jesus and came back empty-handed, the answer of those men was, never man spake like this man. This isn't super. And they said, oh, are you believers too? And Nicodemus said, he didn't answer really. And they said, you go home and you search and see if if the Messiah can come out of Galilee. Jesus didn't come out of Galilee, he came out of Bethlehem, Judah, my friend. And so if they'd have done their homework, they'd have found that Jesus was the Christ. I'll bet you Nicodemus went home and proved that one. Go and find the scriptures, the account of it. What was it that Jesus said we speak that we know? He's talking about the miracles that he did. He said, these are the cold, hard facts, Nicodemus. We're talking about them. And he said, they don't do anything for you. They're not helping any. He said, how in the world can I explain spiritual things to you? How can I give you religious tricks when I'm telling you the simple way to be saved? You want something more complex than that. He said, if I've told you earthly things and you believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things? Christian, don't get caught up trying to share biblical, scriptural truth with unbelievers. Jesus didn't waste his time discussing religion with Nicodemus.